Good morning and welcome everybody to our launch webinar for the strategic call for capitalization of Interreg Central Europe. Today is launch day. The full application package has just been published a few minutes ago on our website. And in the next hour and a half, we will walk you through what this strategic call is about and what you need to know in order to prepare a strong application. Before we start with the welcome by our managing authority, a quick technical note. You're watching this webinar on our applicant community, to which we have added Slido as a tool for collecting your questions. To make you familiar with this tool, we want to warm up with two quick questions that also help us to better understand who is with us today. By the way, the interest in the call seems huge. We had already more than 340 registrations for the webinar. So let's have a look at who is joining us today. We have a first poll for you. What brings you to this webinar today? Do you plan to apply in this call? Do you want to simply explore whether it's worth applying? Are you someone who supports the applicants, like our national contact points? Or are you from another EU institution, a national or regional ministry, just interested in what we are going to do in this strategic call? You see that we have nearly 100 answers. Let's wait a little longer and see what the answers are. $112. Picture is not changing that much anymore. So half of you seem to be already convinced of applying in this call. So you are definitely going to submit an application with us before the end of the call deadline. Another third, a bit more, are still exploring whether you want to apply. 10% are supporting applicants. That's very good. Hello, colleagues, mostly, I suppose. And we also have another 10% that are simply interested in what this call is about without thinking about an application at all. Thank you very much for these answers. Let's have a look at the second poll. As you might know already, in this call, we are aiming to break the silos between the Interreg strands. We want to bring together transnational and cross-border project beneficiaries to work on new solutions and adapt existing solutions. You will hear a lot more about this. So what we are interested in is obviously, have you previously participated in an Interreg project? So the answers can be yes, I've been part of an Interreg Central Europe project. I was part of a cross-border project in the Central Europe area. I was actually already a partner in both a transnational and a cross-border project, or I was part of another Interreg project, not in the Central Europe area, nor in the cross-border world, but rather interregional or another transnational, let's say Danube region or Alpine space or Baltic Sea. Again, more than 100 answers already. Let's see. The majority of you have been participating previously, have previously participated in a Central Europe project. Quite a considerable number of you have participated in both a project of our program and cross-border projects. Some in interregional or transnational, and a good 10% have not yet participated in an Interreg project at all. And only 5% solely in an Interreg cross-border project. But then you have to add this, obviously, to the second most voted answers. So we have a good share, I think, of people with experience in the cross-border world. That's very nice to see. So great, thanks for voting. Slido will stay open during the whole webinar. We see that already in the Q&A section, a few questions are trickling in slowly but surely. You can start posting your questions right now and at any time during the presentation. We will address them after the presentations then, and also a short courtesy break because the presentation might take a little while, to be honest. You can also upvote the questions that you like. You see this already. I think the most upvoted question out of the 15 we received so far already has 10 upvotes. You see that these questions then come to the top, and in the Q&A session, we will, of course, give certain priority to those questions that are interesting to most of you. On the screen, you now also see the agenda, and as you can see there, it is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Oliver Pelzel from the city of Vienna, representing our managing authority, to deliver a brief welcome address. Thank you for joining, Oliver. Hello. Can I ask you into the room? Yes, there you are. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Oliver. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar on our brand new call for project proposals. My name is Oliver Pelzel, and I'm delighted to represent the managing authority of this transnational EU-funded program, Interreg Central Europe. It's truly fantastic to see so many of you joining us online today. Thank you for taking the time to be here and for your interest in shaping the future of cooperation across Central Europe. Today is a special day. It's a special moment for us. With this launch, we are opening the final call of 21-27 programming period for Interreg Central Europe. This isn't just another call. It's a unique opportunity to bring forward fresh, innovative ideas, to build exciting partnerships, and of course, to strengthen collaboration across our area. This time, we are placing a strong focus on capitalization, making sure that the valuable results and solutions developed by previous projects don't just sit on a shelf, but are taken further, creating a lasting impact for our communities. Over the course of this webinar, my colleagues from the GS will guide you through why we are opening this call, why this call is shaped like it is, how you can be part of it, and how we can make the best out of it. And so let's dive in and make the most out of this session together. I wish you an inspiring meeting and the very best of luck as you prepare for your proposals. Last but not least, let's make this final call count. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Oliver, for these interesting words on the last call. As you say, this is a bit sad, one might think, but luckily we also heard that there's a future for Interreg. So we will have more calls coming up in the next programming period, we hope. Let's see how that develops. But now for the time being, let's focus on what we have on the table and slowly but surely move deeper into what this call is about, what we mean by capitalization, etc. So to start with, and to put this whole call into a program perspective, I would like to ask Luca Ferraresa, our head of the Joint Secretariat, to join me and to provide some more details about the background and the objectives of this strategic call, as we call it, and how it aligns with our current program priorities. Luca, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Frank, and very warm welcome to everybody. Good morning to everybody, wherever you are connected. I heard that we are many. We are in good company today, and I'm very proud then to start this webinar with the more, let's say, framework part. I perceive from the questions that there are also some newcomers in this virtual room. So, especially for those, I will give just few thoughts. I will share with you a few thoughts about what is Central Europe, what we are doing. Basically, we are one of the 13 transnational programs of the Interreg objective of cohesion policy, and we are funding projects in Central Europe, which is a very peculiar area. It's an area where there are strong functional linkages between regions. In this slide, you see just one example, which is taken from an ESPON study called CE Flows, which is showing the railway transportation of manufactured goods between clusters or regions of Central Europe. And there is a lot going on. There are many linkages. There are many business and personal interactions between regions which do not, we are not adjacent to each other. And these flows are exactly the aim of our transnational cooperation. In this next slide, you will see basically a presentation, let's say an image where you can see how the partnerships of the projects we are funding are linking to each other. This is like showing the networks established and strengthened these across Central Europe by our projects. These partnerships are working together, are developing new solutions, are putting together professionals, and these partnerships now are working in 125 projects. 25 of them were just approved last week. So we are really, let's say, our community of Central Europe is growing and growing. We have nearly 1,150 partners involved. We allocated already 190 million for transnational cooperation in Central Europe. And these 125 projects are now delivering results which have a tangible effect in the regions and in the population, especially those that now are more developed. And then new will come. They will start implementing this year and next year with these 25 new projects. And this last call, as my colleague Oliver mentioned, is somehow closing the process, closing the gap between what has been done by different projects separately. So to go into the call objective, next slide, please. It's important to understand a little bit the framework of our area. As I mentioned before, there are many functional linkages in Central Europe. But when you look at this picture, which shows the global density of borders, you see something very peculiar, that Europe, and especially Central Europe, is very dense of border. There is high number of borders. There are only in Central Europe 15 national borders between countries. And then there are way more informal borders. There are borders between regions. There are borders even from a cultural perspective, because if you can imagine the former Iron Curtain, which is somehow still showing its impacts after 70 years of still existing. So these borders are hampering the functional flows. And as you can see in the next slide, please, these borders have very negative effects. I mean, a quite recent study showed that at the European level, the cost of border obstacles is nearly 458 billion euro, which is 3% of the GDP, just because they exist there. They create loss of employment. They make solutions and, let's say, growth in the area less efficient, less important. That's why solving border issues is something which can help overall the entire European project. How do we do it? I mean, of course, in Central Europe, we have 15 national borders. These 15 national borders are tackled and addressed by 22 cross-border programs, which are delivering amazing results at the local level. They are developing tailor-made solutions which are fitting very well for that border. But sometimes these solutions remain just there. And even sometimes borders do not talk to each other. There are solutions which are developed in a border which could be used in another border, but they simply don't know it exists. So borders sometimes work like islands. They stay just there. And this is creating somehow inefficiency. At the same time, there is transnational cooperation. You show already the picture on the right-hand side of this slide. Transnational cooperation, which is delivering very good results along functional linkages, along special interactions. They create a multi-level engagement of policy makers and implementers. They put together academia, businesses, institutions. However, transnational cooperation projects sometimes are not able to address very specific local needs, especially for those regions which are not participating in a certain project. What does it mean, all this? If you can just go back to the previous slides just for a second. It means that there are many projects, transnational, cross-border. They are all addressing the issue of borders from very different angles, but sometimes, or very often, these solutions remain not coordinated, and this overall results in a lower efficiency. We are also aware that coordination is sometimes happening. We have nice examples also in Central Europe of projects that by themselves in the transnational cooperation project, they were picking up products and results coming from more cross-border projects. So this somehow coordination happens bottom up, and sometimes we don't even know that this is happening, but still we see a lot of potential for increasing the efficiency, for joining forces between the 125 projects we have funded, plus the thousands of cross-border projects which are all there in Central Europe. So this is the aim of the call. Next slide, please. The aim of the call is exactly to reduce the effect of borders on flows and functional linkages among Central European regions, for making our Central Europe and our regions more competitive and resilient. We do it by taking up and not simply transferring, but adjusting, developing, tailoring to specific needs and to new needs, and to increase the impact of these existing results. In other words, next slide, please. We expect with this call to somehow leverage synergies, break the silos, join forces, team up together between Interreg strands to make Interreg more impactful, more effective as a whole, and to help our regions to benefit from what Interreg is already strongly delivering in our area. This is the overall aim of the call. And this is so important for us. And this is the reason why we call this call strategic, because we believe that for the first time, we can really break the silos between what different Interreg players, stakeholders are doing very well, but they're not doing it together. This is the reason for having this call as strategic. To close my input, I would just mention the timeline. We had a call preview already in May. It's already months ago. And I hope that you colleagues attending this webinar today managed already to think about, to establish synergies, to talk to other projects in order to be able to participate. Because this call now is opening today, and we stay open until 27th of November. It seems still quite some time, but it is not much time to develop a transnational project. So 27th of November, we close the call. We will do the assessment as quick as possible, and we want to finalize the assessment and go to selection by summer of next year, because then projects have to start by autumn, and they have to start as soon as possible, because then the programming period will close, and as Frank mentioned, there will be a new programming period with new ideas and new challenges. So this is really the closing of this success story, which is, I have to say, Central Europe. And I'm very proud to what you as applicants, as beneficiaries of existing projects are doing, and we really count on you for making our Central Europe strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luca. I think you made it very clear why this call is important. And from the first time we started talking about this, I thought this makes absolute sense. And So far, I haven't heard anything else from out there. So let's see what kind of projects we will get. Thank you also, Luca, for thinking of the newcomers and putting our program into the bigger Interreg picture. This is sometimes forgotten. So we are not the only Interreg program, and with this call, even more so, we want to open up to the cross-border world and really cooperate very closely with our cross-border Interreg partners. So before we continue with the more technical presentations about how you can develop a strong application in this call, let me remind you to keep the questions coming in through Slido. I can see you're doing this. Currently, we have a tight race between Oscar Zanutto and Nazim D for the top spot. Martin Hauptmann is catching up. So let's see who will be on top by the end of the presentations with their questions. But anyways, I'm pretty sure these 3 questions we will take, and they will remain among the upvoted ones. They sound very interesting, I find. But yeah, keep on sending in your questions and upvoting the ones you like the most so that we can touch on those after the courtesy break. But now let me introduce the next speakers who will provide you with all you need to know to apply with us in this call. Colleagues, could you please switch your cameras on briefly? So let me introduce my colleagues. First, you will hear about the thematic scope and our approach to capitalization from Monika Schönerklee-Grasser, our strategic head of the project unit. She will be followed then by Christoph Ebermann, our operational head of the project unit, who will present the main features and minimum requirements for strategic capitalization projects. Finally, last but not least, Helga Portelli, head of the program unit in our joint secretariat, will cover the budget fundamentals and how we support you as applicants in the coming weeks and months. So thank you, colleagues, for briefly showing your faces, because now we will go back to the presentation and you will become tiny tiles at the top corner. But Monika, may I ask you to start with the presentation of the thematic scope and other main features of the call. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Frank, and also a very warm welcome and good morning from my side. We are having a very nice and sunny day today in Vienna, and I'm very happy to hear also from the poll at the beginning that many of you are interested in applying to this call. And yeah, as was pointed out already by Luca, this call is very specific in its aim of addressing the reduction of border obstacles and also on its strategic focus on capitalization. Maybe a bit differently, the thematic scope. So there is no specific thematic focus of this call. So this means all our 4 funding priorities and 9 specific objectives are open. Sorry. This means you can apply in all of them. But nonetheless, on the next slide, please, we have tried to identify in the preparation of this call already some areas, some thematic areas, which we believe that they show a very good potential for capitalization. And this is also based on the fact that we have a lot of projects already funded in the first and second call dealing with this thematic field. So in total, we have 100 projects with a lot of outputs and results to be capitalized. I will not read through all these topics which are listed on this slide. Please go back to the last one. But I would really recommend to you that you have maybe a closer look also to the thematic explainers, which we have on our YouTube channel, where you find also additional guidance on the thematic areas of all the 4 priorities and all 9 SOs, and where you also find highlighted these thematic topics where we think that they would have a very good potential for capitalization. But of course, all thematic fields are open, and it doesn't mean that if you apply in one or another of these thematic areas which are listed here, that these would be given preference then during the assessment of your project proposal. If we move then to the next slide, you can find here the indicative budget for each of the 9 program SOs. This is, for those who have been working with us, a bit different to the last calls where we always had a budget per priority, while now the budget is allocated at SO level. So in practical terms, it means that SOs would, for instance, in priorities where you have more SOs, that there would be actually no competition between the different SOs, since each of the SOs has been given a separate budget allocation. But of course, as also highlighted in the TR, these budget figures per SO, they are indicative and of course depend also on the quality of the project proposals which we will receive. In total, the budget of the call is 23 million, which means that finally we would be able to fund more than 20 strategic projects for capitalization. If we go to the next slide, there are certain specificities of the strategic call which you find all in the terms of reference of the call. This is why we advise you that you read very thoroughly through the TOR, since it gives really the framework and all the specific requirements for project proposals to be submitted. One very important requirement for the usage of synergies, since capitalization is at the core of this call, there is one particular minimum requirement, which means also which is important for a project to become eligible or not. This means that each project proposal must take up outputs and results from minimum 2 Interreg Central Europe projects, so from our program, either of the first or second call, plus in addition 2 Interreg cross-border cooperation projects, also preferably from this period, but if in case no relevant outputs are available yet, it could be also of the previous programming period. And you need to focus on cross-border programs which are addressing internal Central European borders. In the annex to the TOR, you find the list of those CBC programs with internal borders, where you can check if the cross-border program project you would like to capitalize qualifies for these minimum requirements. What is important, the compliance with this minimum requirement, this will be checked already as part of the extended compliance check. So if your project proposal is not in line with this minimum requirement, so it would not be further assessed and it would be automatically not eligible. Of course, you can also include more output from other programs as well. So this can go on top and of course is welcome, but as usual, the more is not the merrier. So if you want to capitalize output from other programs as well, this has to be meaningful and also has to bring an added value to your capitalization project. If you go to the next slide, please. On this slide, you can find some key project features. What is important? As a first requirement, your project proposal has to be in line with the call objective. So this means it has to clearly emphasize on the capitalization of both transnational and cross-border outputs and results, and contribute to the overall objective of the call of reducing border obstacles. In terms of partnership, there is only one requirement that the minimum is, as usual, also as in previous calls, it has to be at least 3 partners from 3 countries, 2 of which are located in Central Europe. As you can see in the TRR of the call, there are some recommended features for the partnership, and this will be then also explained by my colleague Christoph afterwards. The duration of projects has to be between 18 and 24 months, so maximum 24 months, no longer project durations are possible, as also mentioned by Luca before, since the programming period is also coming to an end. And in terms of budgets, the maximum budget is 1 million euro ERDF. Maybe also what is very particular, very specific about this strategic call, operations or projects which will be funded will be coming operations of strategic importance. We call them OSIs. And for those projects, they will receive additional visibility also from the side of the European Commission. And we will also put or support these projects with special program communication measures in order to show really the impact of those regions and their benefit for our program area. If you go to the next one, capitalization can be done in 2 ways. Either through upstreaming or downstreaming, but what is important is that those projects create a wider impact. So if we speak about the upstreaming of project outputs and results, what does it mean? Upstreaming is supposed to address the policy level to make sure that outputs, they don't just stay either local or technical, but that they are brought to the attention of the policymakers, authorities, decision makers, and then integrated in broader strategies or policies. So this means that as a main result, upstreaming then wants to shape future policies and addressing either national, regional, or local level. In addition, also the downstreaming of outputs and results is important. And this means that, as I think also our colleague Oliver from the Managing Authority pointed already out at the beginning, that outputs and results, that they not just stay within the project team or the specific area, but that they are wider used by more people, more end users, organizations, other sectors as well, and also adjusted and transferred then finally to other areas. So there could be either or, so a project could either focus on the upstreaming or downstreaming, but also a combination of both. So this is all possible. In this slide, we have tried to, in a schematic way, to show you how the overall intervention logic of such a capitalization project could look like. So this means taking transnational project outputs and results, combining them with cross-border project outputs and results, maybe also outputs and results from other projects, but this is optional and not mandatory. And then further working on them, combining them, adjusting them, approving them, further developing them in a joint way, in cooperation with other partners, and then using these outputs and results which have been developed in your capitalization project, either upstream or downstreaming or both. In the next slide, and this is actually the last slide, which I will be presenting before I hand over to my colleague Christoph, we have tried to present a bit a more practical example of a capitalization project. Still, it's very abstract. It doesn't deal with any specific thematic area or thematic field, but this was a bit an attempt to showcase the intervention logic of defining the overall project objective, the outputs to be capitalized, the type of outputs which are then developed in the capitalization project as such, comprising strategies, action plans, a pilot action, and solutions. And then also showcasing either the upstreaming to the policy level or the downstreaming, or as I said before, the combination of both. I will not go in detail through this project example. You can read it then from the supporting materials, and I think also the presentation of this webinar will be anyway published on our website. So maybe just as a bit a concluding remark from my side, please take capitalization not as just about reusing results of previous projects, but it's really about combining and adapting them in an intelligent and smart way to create something more impact and meaningful. And with this, I hand over to my colleague Christoph, who will give you more explanation and also on the partnership and how to develop the work plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica, and good morning also from my side. In my presentation, I will give you some overview on some main project features to start with the partnership. If we can move on, thank you. For the partnership, in terms of minimum requirements, it was already presented to you. So the normal minimum requirements as for all our calls and all our projects apply to have at minimum 3 partners from 3 countries, out of which at least 2 need to be located in Central Europe. And when it comes to the partnership size, this is a recurrent question to us. Well, the partnership size depends on what you want to do. So the partnership size depends on the project scope and needs to consider the budget limitations, which are foreseen in this call. So from our side, there is no recommended size. The partnership should be competent and relevant in order to be able to implement what is foreseen in the project. In terms of composition, all types of institutions can participate. In this regard, please also have a look at the further details provided in the chapter 5 of the TOR. And more in general, as I was already mentioning, project partners or the partnership should be coherent with the territorial and thematic scope of the project. So that you should have the right competencies on board. They should the partners should address the governance levels on which you are working or the sectors on which you will work, and have the ability and the capacity to reach out to the target groups whom you want to involve in your project. More specifically for this call, it is recommended that the partnership is composed of organizations that were actively involved or actively participating in the Interreg Central Europe projects to be capitalized, and organizations that were actively participating in the Interreg cross-border cooperation projects to be capitalized. By actively participating, we understand institutions which are not only formally involved in the projects, but also that have been actively contributing to the shaping of the outputs and results being capitalized. In this regard, these institutions should also be owning the outputs and results being capitalized, or at least hold the relevant user rights. The idea behind that is that the institutions need to tailor the outputs. So in order to work with the outputs, to tailor the outputs, to capitalize them in the framework of the project, they need to know what the outputs are about, and they must have the rights to really use them and to develop them further. So in case, for example, your project is working on an IT platform, well, the partner involved and capitalizing on this output needs to have the rights to possibly change the source code and to work further with this platform. In addition to the set of partners which I was presenting now, the partnership should include also additional organizations that can facilitate the upstreaming or the downstreaming of the existing outputs and results. So either, for example, to include public sector public actors which are involved in the shaping of the policies that you want to work on. And there again comes the question from addressing the right governance level or involving organizations that represent the new territories or sectors to be addressed or where these outputs should be rolled out. In this regard, we often get the question whether the call is also open to newcomers, and the answer is definitely yes, because exactly here we encourage the involvement of such institutions which are bringing the outputs and results to the next level, to the policy levels or to the other territories. When we come now to the intervention logic, of course, is the core of your project. The intervention logic as such needs to be aligned with the call objective of reducing the border effects on flows and functional linkages among Central European regions. So each and every project, in order to be relevant, needs to be contributing to this overall aim of the call. In addition, of course, your project, as also presented by my colleague Monica, needs to contribute to the objectives and aims and expected results as defined in this program-specific objective that your project is targeting. As mentioned, all our 9 SOs are open, but you need to choose one SO where your project is focusing on. In its approach and in its objective, the project, of course, needs to reflect the capitalization focus of the call. In terms of project outputs, the full options in our program are open in this last call. So your project can work on strategies, on action plans, on pilot actions, on solutions, and in addition, of course, the cooperation being established through the setting up of the project. What you are focusing on in the end depends on your capitalization approach. If you go more onto the upstreaming of outputs and results, then you will most likely have more strategies and action plans in order to foster the policy change. In case your project is going more in the direction of a downstreaming, then your focus will probably be more on pilot actions and the development of related solutions. As already mentioned earlier, within one project, you can also combine both approaches. The project results should lead to a concrete uptake of the existing outputs and results and generate a greater impact and effect for the territories and beyond. So they should have a wider and a benefit, should be of a benefit for wider areas going beyond the border regions. So the general idea, as in all our projects, we want to trigger and shape an effective change at territorial level, and this should become visible in your proposal as outcome also from your intervention logic. If we look now into the work plan, that's where your proposal will become concrete. In each, for those who have been working with us, you know that the work plan is composed of a series of work packages. We would recommend to you to have a maximum of 3 work packages. Technically, it would be possible to have up to 5 work packages, but this is not really recommended since you most likely will not need them, in the sense that in each of your work package, you need to define a project-specific objective. You need to define a project communication objective that will be achieved through this work package. Then you need to define in these work packages a series of activities. Here we recommend to have not more than 4 to 6 activities per work package. And each activity is composed of a set of deliverables. The deliverables are capturing what has been implemented in the frame of the activities and is documenting this. All these activities lead then also to a series of outputs, which you need to define also at work package level. Again, the loop closes with the outputs. You demonstrate the achievement and also of your project-specific objectives, which you have defined in the respective work package. It is to be kept in mind that our work packages are only thematic work packages. Communication and management are seen as integral part of the work plan and should be integrated. You will find an own section in the application form where it's the section C7, where you describe your general approach to management. And when it comes to communication, you should integrate. There is also the section C7.2 where you describe the overall approach to communication, but then concretely what you plan to do in terms of communication should be reflected also in your work plan within the work packages. What is very important in this regard is, or could be very helpful, is on one hand side, we do have a specific tutorial on how to build a project intervention logic, which can be very helpful. Also the program manual, and here especially the Annex 2, which includes the definitions of our output types, is very useful. And last but not least, you might have noticed that we also have published in the frame of the call package, an offline application form template, which includes additional guidance. So for the different fields which you're supposed to fill in the application form, in this offline template, you will find additional guidance, including tips and tricks, what we've seen also in past calls, in order to steer you and help you when you will prepare your application. If we move now onwards to the question on what makes a good capitalization project, well, first of all, it needs to be relevant. As mentioned, your project needs to be relevant for the overall project call aim, meaning to reduce border effects on flows and functional linkages among Central European regions. This is really important. This is going to demonstrate the relevance of your proposal in addition to the relevance to the SO which you have selected. So this is really a cornerstone in terms of relevance. Second part, your project needs to be clear. So it needs to have a clear intervention logic, which leads to the achievement of these objectives as you have defined them. Then we are a transnational cooperation program, meaning the transnational added value needs to become clear from your proposal, and this cooperation approach needs also to become clear in your intervention logic, meaning that the partners are actively cooperating while developing the outputs and while, for example, implementing their pilot actions. The capitalization approach needs to come out clearly. It's a capitalization call, so the projects need to clearly build on outputs and results of the previous projects being capitalized, and it should go beyond just pooling of results and outputs. It is really about creating added value and tailoring these outputs and results, bringing them to the next level. As for the work plan should be consistent, transparent, it should be focused and clear. This is what we consider a mature work plan. In terms of partnership, I already mentioned it before, the partnership, it's really important that first of all, you have the relevant partners in it and the competent partners. Those partners who are able to implement what you're foreseeing in your project. And then this depends, of course, on the approach you want to follow. There's whether you want to work more on a downstreaming or an upstreaming, where you might need, for example, the policy partners. A strong management is essential in any project. It helps you to keep your project on track, to support the coordination and the exchange and the cooperation in the frame of the project. Communication is not only now because it's a requirement to have a high visibility a high visible project, since these are our operations of strategic importance, but also more in general, communication is key in order to reach and achieve the objectives as you have defined in your proposal. Value for money needs to be demonstrated by the projects that are being submitted to us. And if I go one step further here, of course, the projects need also to demonstrate that the budget is reflecting the project design, that the budget is balanced, and that it reflects the partner responsibilities. So all in all, this is an element on the project budget, which is an important criterion and which my colleague Helga will detail further in a moment. Last but not least, as already mentioned, we want to achieve with our project long-lasting impacts, which create a real change in the territories targeted by your proposal. Thank you. And with this, I hand over to my colleague Helga. Helga, please.
Thank you, Christoph. And yes, I will give you a short presentation first about the project budget and how it should look like. It was already mentioned in various moments in the previous slides that the maximum total project budget would be 1,250,000, which is equivalent to 1 million of ERDF. So when you come to submit the proposal, in case it goes beyond the amounts that I have just mentioned, automatically the system will not let you submit, because this is a requirement. You cannot go above the budget, but of course it can be below, because as Christoph was mentioning earlier, your budget must reflect what you are going to carry out in the projects. Each lead partner and project partner has to choose one budget option. It's not something which is a top-down approach. It should not be the lead partner choosing for all the project partners, but it has to be each partner that selects an option which fits best for its organization. So when looking at the different options, first of all, there is also a preparation and contracting lump sum. It's not a matter of an option. The option would be either you include it in the application form under section E of the application form, or you don't. And this would be a lump sum of 17,500, which is equivalent to 14,000 of ERDF, which can be allocated to one partner, or it could also be allocated to different partners. However, it is only paid to those projects that eventually will be funded, and only if the lump sum had already been included in the application form. Then when it comes to the implementation, to project implementation, as I mentioned, there are these three options. We start with the first option, which is known as the real costs option, where the staff costs are on a real cost basis, and also the cost category for external expertise and services, equipment costs, and infrastructure and works costs. These would be on a real cost basis, and then for the cost category 2, which is office and administration costs, there is a flat rate which is calculated on the basis of the staff costs. So according to the amount included under staff costs, the system automatically calculates 15% of the staff costs as a flat rate for the office and administration costs. With regards to the cost category 3, which is travel and accommodation costs, it would also be a flat rate, but in this case, it is not one flat rate for all, but it is at it's country specific. So, for example, if a partner comes from Germany, then the percentage would be, for example, 5% of the staff costs, which is automatically calculated by the system. So this is one of the options, which is, as I mentioned, referred to more as the real costs option. Then the second option is where staff cost is not calculated on a real cost basis, but it is also a flat rate. The flat rate is of 20% calculated on the basis of what is included under cost category 4, external expertise and services, cost category 5, equipment, and cost category 6, infrastructure and works. So whatever is put there as the real costs under these 3 cost categories, cost category 4, 5, and 6, then 20% is calculated on that amount, and that would constitute the staff costs. And then, as explained in the option 1, the flat rates related to cost category 2, office and administration costs, and cost category 3 apply as well here. So when you look at these options, and you see also here on the screen the color coding, you see that those which are light gray are real costs. Those which are light green are simplified cost options, which are obligatory, and the darker green are simplified cost options, which are not obligatory. Coming to the third option, this is quite popular among our beneficiaries, and it's known as the 40% option, where the staff costs, again, are on a real cost basis, and then all the other costs are calculated as a 40% flat rate of the staff costs. And this would cover basically all the other cost categories, so from cost category 2 down to cost category 6. So these are the 3 different options, which then for the closure, they would be, for the closure costs, it depends on which option you would have chosen, then this would apply for closure. It's important, as I mentioned earlier, that it is each beneficiary choosing this, and within one project, you can have the different options. For example, the lead partner goes for option 3. But partner number 2 prefers option 1, and partner number 4 prefers option 2. So there can be a mix. It could also be that all the beneficiaries go for the same option. But it's possible to have different options selected by the individual organizations. So this is, in a nutshell, the project budget and how you should choose which option is good for you. Going now to the support measures and tools. As you can see, we offer quite a vast number of measures, supporting measures to our applicants, starting from even today. We are here in this webinar giving you more information about the call. And one of the measures is actually the community, which is an online community that facilitates project partner search and where you can present your project ideas. I think you know about this community, because otherwise you would not be following us today. You must already be part of the community. However, as you can see, we have also included here the link to the community in the slide. We have a number of webinars like the one of today, but now after you would hear from us today, we will let you digest the information, and we will also have an additional webinar. It will be a Q&A webinar on the 16th of October. So please stay tuned so that, and whenever, if you have any questions, that would be the time where you can really ask whatever you would like. We have videos, we have a set of tutorials and explainers introducing the key aspects of the call. I think it was Christoph that mentions also the ones which are about the thematic fields and the project development. So we have a number of videos that you can find on our YouTube channel. It is not only the JS and the managing authority that provides support, but there is a lot of support that you can find also at national level. where our national contact points can provide you with guidance and information in your own national language and answer any questions that you have about the application process and anything with regards to your projects. And another measure that we offer is the individual consultations that will be held with the JS, where we give guidance to you on your project development and on any application requirements that there are. You can also see that we have a help desk, and here we have included our email address to the help desk that is always ready to support. Focusing more on the individual consultations, we recommend that these happen at an early stage, but probably not too early. So you have to have a mature project idea in order to have the consultation, because if it is only too basic, then it would be maybe not so beneficial to discuss at such an early stage with our joint secretariat. The consultation is based on an idea form, which you would include on the platform, on the community platform. However, it is not obligatory to publish it, meaning that we will, as the JS, will be able to see your idea, your project idea, but you do not need to make it public if you do not wish so. If you wish to maybe see whether some others want to join your project, you can publish it and others can have a look at it and contact you on the community platform, but otherwise it's not obligatory to do so. And you need to request these consultations. They are not obligatory. It's just something that we are offering to guide you. So as I mentioned, they're not obligatory, but you should request them from tomorrow until the 19th November. What I mean by requests, they don't have to happen within that timing. Most of them will happen within that timing, but the latest that you can request is the 19th of November. And then going to the national info days, as I mentioned, our national contact points are also there to answer questions, to give guidance to you. And here, as you can see, there are the different appointments and dates when they are happening in each of our 9 member states. And if you go to our event calendar on our website, you can also find the information. Some of them are being held in person, some are online, but all the information you can find on our website too. Now, going to the call documents, we heard earlier that now they have been made public and you can download them already from our website. And to mention what is part of these call documents, we have the application package, where one of the most important documents is the terms of reference, which outlines the terms and conditions of the call, also mentioned previously by Monica. It's very important that you go through this document and make sure that you see what the requirements are of this call. Then we have the offline application form template, which provides also guidance, mentioned also by Christoph. For almost every field, there is guidance on what is being requested from you, what is being expected that you write in the different text boxes, and how best to fill in the application form. But this is an offline template because the actual application form is to be submitted through GEMS, which is our monitoring system. Then there is the lead partner and project partner declaration templates, which have to be filled in, signed by each of the partners. Please make sure to use the correct template. There is the one for the Call4. Have a look. It specifically shows you on top that it refers to the capitalization call. And these have to be then submitted together with the application form through GEMS. And Lastly, there is also the simplified financial statement, which only applies to private lead applicants. This has to be filled in by private lead applicants, and also the private lead applicants would have to submit further documents. But all this is included, all the information is included in the terms of reference. Then we have some tools to help you with preparing the project. We have a self-assessment tool of your project proposal. We have a project summary generator that you can use. There is the financial capacity check for private lead applicants, where the private lead applicants can include the financial information, and then it is automatically calculated and shows whether you would pass the financial capacity check or not. And lastly, in these tools, there is also a mapping of the B solutions, which is an initiative of the European Commission, where some interesting pilots have been developed, and they also address the Central Europe area. And in this document, we have mapped out these solutions for inspirational purposes. Together with the application package, there is other very important documents, and these are the manuals. The program manual, which goes hand in hand with the terms of reference, because it gives more information, it gives more details, and goes more into the requirements, and yeah, it gives a lot of information. And also the GEMS manual, where it shows how to submit the proposal in GEMS, and gives a lot of information there. Both of these manuals are available as PDF and also in HTML version. Last, I come to the last slide now, and I focus on GEMS. GEMS, as I mentioned earlier, is the Joint Electronic Monitoring System, which is used, and each application has to be submitted through GEMS and in no other way. So get accustomed also with the manual, as I mentioned, and please, this is a tip from our end. The system has pre-submission checks, and we really recommend that when you are filling the application form, you regularly run these pre-submission checks, so that you are not left surprised at the last minute when you cannot submit, because there is some kind of error that will not allow you to submit the application form. So please run them throughout the preparation of your application form. And with this, I come to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Helga. Thank you very much, colleagues. In the last hour and a few minutes, we've covered a lot of ground. So I think it's worth taking a short break before we get into the questions and answers part, even though we are running late a little. So suggestion is to have a short 5-minute break, to then come back again, take the most upvoted of your 40 questions. And in order to do so, I'm afraid we will probably have to extend the duration of this webinar a little. For those that have to leave a bit earlier and on time, no worries. As I said before, this webinar will be recorded. So if the answer to one of your questions only comes towards the end of the webinar, the answer will not be lost. You can then watch the recording that we will share with you tomorrow. So for the time being, thank you very much again to my colleagues, and let's have a 5-minute break and gather back here at 11:45. See you in a few minutes. To digest all the information, something that still well resonates with me is linked to what Helga said at the very end of our presentation, and that refers to the core documents. Read them thoroughly. Don't rely on anything that you find on your desktop. Go to our website and download the latest application package, so that you make no mistakes using the right documents for this call. So, but let's now have a look at your questions from Slido. I can see that there's now 41 questions. And in the last few minutes, Margojata has overtaken Oscar by 2 votes. However, most of these questions concern outputs, which is kind of like to be expected since this is a capitalization call and outputs play a central role in the upcoming projects. So let's dive into this. And I would like to ask my colleague Monika Schöner-Klee-Grasser, maybe to start with, to join me. Hello, Monika. And to address the first few questions, the most upvoted questions on outputs. Monika, the floor is yours. Maybe you can read out the question briefly, or I can read out the Margojata's question, and then we go along the questions one by one. So Margojata is asking, can we build on outputs that are not yet available, but will be available by the start of the project in mid-2026?
Thank you very much. This is a very important question since, of course, outputs, they need to be readily available in order to be capitalized. But we are aware that, for instance, outputs of our second call projects, they will become final only next year. So this means, of course, when you're preparing the application now, not all of the outputs you want to capitalize might be, of course, fully finalized yet. But they should, of course, be in an advanced stage that you have already enough knowledge on how they will look like when they will be finalized. So the answer is a yes, you can capitalize those outputs even though they are not yet fully finalized, but they should be in an advanced stage and then become finalized once you then finally start your project proposal.
Thank you, Monika. Next was Oscar, most upvoted 27 times, who is asking whether it is mandatory to bring a project output into the capitalization call, or if a specific deliverable would suffice, would be good enough. This, he believes, is especially relevant, in particular for deliverables coming from Interreg cross-border projects.
Yeah, for this also distinction of outputs and deliverables, first I would like to point also to our definitions of what are outputs. And this you find also in the annex, in the glossary, Annex 1 to our program manual, and also in Annex 2, which gives you all the definitions of output and result indicators. Maybe also as a general principle, what we want to see is the capitalization of outputs and results. Of course, there is a connection between outputs and deliverables. So for instance, in our program in Central Europe, you have for each of the outputs, as you might know, you have a final deliverable, which gives a more comprehensive documentation of the output as such. So the focus should be on capitalization of output and results. But if you want, in addition to capitalize additional deliverables, like whatever, a study which has been done, which is maybe not fully reflected in an output, you're welcome to do so. But maybe to point also to the minimum requirements again, which relates to output and results. And speaking maybe also for cross-border, you know, also in Interreg, there is this harmonized implementation tools, the HIT, and there is also there, it includes the terminology of outputs and results. So therefore also, when you think about cross-border outputs, please also make sure that these outputs which you want to capitalize, and if they are part of the minimum requirements, then please counter-check that those are also in line with the HIT, with the terminology applied for outputs.
Thank you, Monika. Maybe a short break for you. The next question is still on outputs, but rather focused on a legal question. So maybe Helga, you are the right person to come in. So the question is by Martin Hauptmann. Hi, in our project, all of the partners own the same share of all of the outputs. If 2 of the partners decide to use an output in the capitalization call, do they need written consent from every partner, or just from the lead partner, or no written consent at all?
Good. So maybe we recall what Christoph was mentioning, that this is rather a recommendation from our end in order for the project not to have, and the partners not to have issues during implementation. So the fact that they should own the outputs or have the right to use, we are not going to be checking this. It is not something that we need proof, but it's rather for you to make sure that in the end you can make use of these outputs. So check with with the other partners that you are the one that can also make use, even if you have part ownership. No written requirement is really needed from our end, but if you feel more comfortable in getting these written requirements so that legally you are safe in a way, then go ahead and do so.
Super. Thank you, Helga. With this, let's come back to Monica again, because we will stay on the outputs. So a question that was upvoted many times, and Nazim's question was in the lead for a long while, and it's still very much upvoted. Can a single output be used in multiple capitalized projects?
Yeah, for this question, we don't foresee any limitations. So no restrictions that an output could not be used in more than one capitalization project. Since, for instance, also, I don't know if there is an output of a solution or a model to be used. So this could be applied also in different thematic areas. So it might even make sense to apply it in and use it and capitalize it in various projects dealing with different topics or dealing with different areas. So there is a clear answer, no limitations are foreseen.
Thank you, Monica. The next question by Anonymous, I believe we answered already. It's again on whether it has to be outputs or whether it could be deliverables, networks, etc. I think you answered this already, Monica. So this again was upvoted many times, but the answer we gave. So that takes me to the next question. Do you have an analysis of project outputs so far produced? I suppose the question is about Interreg CENTRL Europe project outputs.
Yeah, I can also take this question. So we don't have any particular analysis done on project outputs. Also for the one reason, as also said before, not all outputs are available yet. But we have a very useful tool at hand, which is the project gateway on our program website, where you can find and easily search for the different outputs to be developed at project level. So you will be linked to the project outputs, to the project website, sorry. And also you have a virtual map where you can also see the location of projects, location of pilot action. So this is very useful. And for identifying outputs of other programs, we kindly advise you also to make use of the KEEP database, which contains very comprehensive information on other programs, both at partner level, at output level, and you can use different search functions for identifying outputs also on a thematic level. So I think this is really a very useful tool to be used as well.
Thank you, Monica. For the next question, I think I will bring in Christoph because it concerns the partnership. And here the question is concretely, could you please clarify whether there is a maximum number of proposals in which a single organization may participate?
There is no maximum number which we are prescribing, but of course an institution should have the capacities to work on the projects on which it is applying and have the competences. So, and be really active in the proposal. So the aim is not to be in every proposal that is possible, of course, but then to go for those proposals where the institution has really the competences, really wants to lead to a change and has an active role in it.
Thank you, Christoph. Talking about competences, obviously selection process is also one of your competences. So the next question is, how is the uptake of capitalized outputs evaluated in the selection process? What evidence is required for this uptake, and how will the degree of uptake be monitored later on?
Yeah, I was looking at this question, and I would actually have two interpretations on how this question is meant. If it's meant in the first sense, uptake in the sense of the uptake of the outputs in the capitalization process. So whether this capitalization approach, how this is reflected in the assessment process. There is a dedicated section in the assessment process or in the assessment grid related to it, which deals with capitalization and synergies. Maybe just as a general claim, please have a look at the TOR. There's a table 4, which includes the selection criteria and guiding questions. And in there, you will see that there is a dedicated question on the approach for capitalizing existing outputs and results and how clearly this is demonstrated. So it fully feeds into the selection process. If I take the second understanding of really the word of uptake, so that the outputs which were developed, how they need to be uptaken. For example, if you go for an upstreaming project and you want your new policy, for example, to be uptaken, this is something which is indeed also assessed in when we look at the proposal, in the sense of what are the first of all, whether the intervention logic leading there makes sense. And then as a second point, there is a specific question under implementation. How well does the project proposal conceptualize the ownership, durability, long-lasting effect, and transferability of outputs and results? And this is exactly where we look into the question whether a durable change is going to be delivered. And then since this question also includes the monitoring of this uptake is indeed to be documented in the frame when once you are implementing your project, you will have to deliver some evidence of this uptake, such as, for example, the decision of a local council adopting a strategy, or a regional council, or a letter of intent of the respective organizations that want to integrate these output into their policymaking process.
Perfect, Christoph. You answered two questions in one, I suppose. So thank you very much for this. With the next question, I think I'm going to address Monica again, whether there is a qualitative or territorial criteria set for combining the project outputs from different projects, or what we deem as the ideal scenario for putting the puzzle of outputs together.
This combination of outputs goes back to the minimum requirements, which I pointed out before. So the combination of at minimum 2 Central Europe outputs, and so outputs from 2 Central Europe projects plus 2 outputs from cross-border programs. There is actually no further requirement on any whatever territorial scope, except for contributing to the overall call objective of reducing effects of border obstacles. And I think I want really to emphasize to you, when you think all about this combination of outputs and their capitalization, please also keep very strongly in your mind this contribution to the overall project aim. So this objective of reducing border obstacles and hampering functional flows in Central Europe. So please bear this in mind when you combine those outputs and results to be capitalized. Other than that, there is no particular recommendation or requirement on whatever a specific territorial focus or thematic focus.
Thank you, Monica. Then there's a question on projects or outputs from different priorities. Can these capitalization projects combine outputs and projects from, let's say, our innovation priority and the green priority, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So there is no whatever restriction that it can't be cross SOs. So, but of course, it should make sense. So if you combine, I don't know, an output from a governance project with one from environment or one from transport, and if it fits well together into an overall project intervention logic, there is nothing which speaks against it. And then, of course, you need to make up your mind in which of the SOs then you want to place your application. But this should then reflect the main scope of the project proposal you're developing.
Thank you, Monica. The next question, I think, was clearly answered already by Christoph in his presentation. So we welcome newcomers for sure. So you don't have to have taken part in an Interreg project before. And then there's a question, Luca, maybe that's a good time to bring you in and to explain in more depth what we mean by projects addressing internal Central European borders, what kind of cross-border projects fall into this category. Luca.
Yeah, sure. I can take over this one. Basically, of course, the national borders are those which have an obvious impact on the functional flows and the linkages between territories. This is clear. So that's why our call sets as a minimum requirement to have projects to be capitalized from cross-border programs, Interreg, and Central Europe, transnational. Still, there are cases, and we have concrete examples of regions which, even if they are not in a border, they are hampered by issues, by administrative obstacles which are linked to, even inside the same country, somehow a border or an administrative border. So there might even be a mainstreaming project which could be interesting for another area which is facing these challenges. Whatever is somehow hampering the functional linkages, the flows between regions, is somehow addressed by the call. It is then up to you as applicant to demonstrate that with your project you will strengthen the capacity of Central Europe to work as a whole. It is really up to you to demonstrate. Of course, as I said, it's more obvious with national borders, but still, this is not the full picture. There are also other examples, even of urban areas and rural areas. We had a call that we just closed and funded about it. Still, it's obvious that more features can be addressed by a single project. And I'm sure our applicants will be very creative.
Thank you, Luca. I think the next question then has to do more with ownership again. Helga, I'm not sure, maybe you are the person to answer the question by Roman Hillebrand. When selecting cross-border projects, should the selected project resemble or should it be geographically connected to the home region of the applying organization? Or is it possible to use outputs from far away cross-border areas? I understand this as a question of ownership, but maybe also Monica, I don't know who's.
I do not really see this as ownership,
Okay.
but rather as the outputs, which outputs you're taking to be capitalized.
So Monica, maybe you would like to answer this one then?
I can also take this question. I hope I understand it right. So it's not so much about the location of the institution. So I think what is important and what we also ask in the application form is the capacity of the respective partner to implement the foreseen activities. So this means, I don't know, capitalizing an output which might have been developed far away and then to be applied to another area. You need to really to put it into the context. So the one is the user rights, whether, I don't know, a more general tool, I don't know, speaking again about the platform or a methodology developed in one project. might not be very, I don't know how to say, bound to the territory, or so, or maybe to start from the other side. If a project has been developed in a certain territory and includes a lot of territorial features, then I would think it's maybe hard to do this from a partner who is located somewhere else. If it's an output which is maybe not so much characterized by the particular territory, then it could be maybe also further developed by a partner who is located somewhere else. So I think it's really needs to be seen on a case-by-case basis. What is important that the partner being in the project and capitalizing outputs really has the capacity to do this in the regions where the activities are foreseen.
Thank you, Monica.
Or maybe I didn't understand your question right.
Maybe a more straightforward one. If we didn't answer the question anyways, there's always the option to contact our help desk and to get more of a clarification. So the next question, does the proposal need to include a minimum number of solutions, pilot actions, strategies, action plans?
Yeah, I think I can also take this, or maybe also Christoph. Overall, there is actually no particular minimum at project level. However, each of the work packages in the work plan needs to have at least one output. And then, of course, it's up to each project proposal to set up a target for the number of outputs as such.
Thank you, Monica. The next two questions I would like to give to Christoph then, and after that, I think we slowly have to close. Also, the questions repeating and were answered before to a large degree. So we have Luka Žricek. Is it necessary to include new partners in the downstream approach, or can they work with the same partners to broaden the previously developed solution?
Well, I take this question from another perspective, in the sense just a mere continuation of what the project is doing now is not sufficient. A project needs to demonstrate that it has a real clear capitalization approach, bringing together outputs and results from 2 Central Europe projects plus 2 CBC projects from programs from inner borders. Looking at this question, asking whether a solution which was previously developed and is just further rolled out in the same territory would, in my understanding, at least miss this capitalization approach, because where the question is, where is it being brought together with the other outputs? But then there is not the need to go for new territories, but the solution as such, there will be a new solution. You cannot go with the same solution and just roll it out the same as done in the previous project. So maybe I get the question a bit wrong, but I think what is really important is this call is not a call for a mere continuation of ongoing projects. It's a call for capitalization, for bringing outputs and results together. And it should go beyond the pooling of these outputs and results, but really of creating an added value, of creating new capitalized outputs, which like new outputs and results, which contribute to the aim of the overall call of reducing barriers and borders for functional flows in Central Europe.
Thank you, Christoph. The next question kind of we answered already before. So there's the question by Gregor Gilles, also focused on downstreaming. So here the question is about the output types. So is it suggested to reach not only new pilot actions and solutions, new joint strategies and action plans?
Well, your project, in your project, you are going to capitalize outputs and results from the, as said, 2+2 projects. And then you are going to tailor them and develop new pilots, and pilots will lead to new solutions. Maybe if I pick up also related to the question which we had earlier, which Monica was already answering, I would really recommend applicants to have a look at the at our tutorial on the intervention logic, in the sense that following our definitions, which are also included in the Annex 2 of the program manual, each solution needs to build on a pilot action, and the pilot action needs to take place before the solution is being developed. That's a common mistake which we see in many of the proposals being submitted to us, developing first a solution and then testing it in a pilot. But in reality, our intervention logic is a different one. You test something in a pilot action, and jointly you are evaluating it, you are assessing how this can be developed and shaped into a solution, and then you have a joint solution which is then taken up by organizations. And this is the intervention logic for the pilot actions and solutions. And in parallel, and this would be the downstreaming, and for the upstreaming, you probably work more on strategies and related action plans. But as said, both can be combined. But yes, the idea is that in these strategic projects for capitalization, you will have new outputs and newly developed results, which go well beyond what was there at the beginning from the outputs which are being capitalized.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Last one to you. Very, very last question, because this concerns the lead partners. Can a lead partner be a partner that was not actively involved in the projects to be capitalized, but that acts as the facilitator of the capitalization proposal?
Can the lead partner be a partner that was not actively involved in the... Well, the lead partner, we don't have any requirements of who has to be the lead partner. The minimum requirements, because often this is also misunderstood, the only minimum requirements we have towards the partnership is having 3 partners from 3 countries, out of which 2 are from Central Europe. The other things we have are recommendations, and whether the partners who have been organizations that were actively participating in the Interreg CE projects being capitalized, or actively involved and participating in the Interreg cross-border program projects that are capitalized, whether these are the partners or the lead partner doesn't matter for us. So you can have a lead partner who could even be a newcomer potentially, bringing together the partners which are bringing the knowledge and the competences required, demonstrating the capitalization approach and demonstrating also the competences and capacities for the upstreaming and the downstreaming.
Thank you, Christoph. So all our applicants have to be is to be convincing in that regard, convince us that this makes sense. With this, I hope we convinced you that this call is a great opportunity for you to apply with us and to work further on your most valuable outputs and increase their impact together with other and new partners. So time flies, we have to close really now. We already extended the webinar by 15 minutes. I hope you will be not running into any troubles because of this. However, let me first remind you a little bit of the continuous support we will offer to you in the coming weeks and months when you start preparing or when you continue to prepare your applications. So first of all, unfortunately, we couldn't take all the questions, but I recommend to have a look at the frequently asked questions section on our website, or if you don't find an answer there, feel free to get in touch with our help desk at any point in time, and we will try to answer these questions individually. You can also get in touch, as you heard before, with the national contact points in your countries. They will even be able to answer your questions in your national languages. Sometimes this helps. And if still some questions remain open, then there will be the dedicated question and answer webinar on the 16th of October, which we planned as a follow-up to this webinar only at a time when all of you that are going to apply with us had the time to dive deeper into the application package, to understand what the call is about in detail, what the expectations are. So in this Q&A webinar, we expect even more technical questions than we already got them today. So And if you're already one step further and you think like, I have no open questions that I want to ask in such a webinar, but I have very individual questions, then as also my colleague Helga was pointing out, we offer non-compulsory individual consultations that can be requested as of tomorrow. And here you will then get an appointment with colleagues from the JS, and you can discuss your proposal with them.